Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. India lost 20 of its soldiers in a fist fight with the Chinese, and this scuffle and this fight wasn't something new. The skirmishes have been there between India and China for several decades now. But this time, the killing of 20 Indian soldiers is a big issue in the region and specifically for India. Inside India, Modi government is being criticized for their policy and for their policy to pick up fights with the neighbors. Modi government has shown aggression to Pakistan on the line of control, to China on the line of actual control. It has shown aggression to Nepal for that matter, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. At the moment, what we see is that India is under pressure. Even in Afghanistan, we see that India is playing the role of a spoiler. And the leadership in Afghanistan, the Afghan leadership too, realizes that India is up to no good when it comes to the peace process in Afghanistan, because there is just one player which would not want any sort of peace deal or intra-Afghan talks even in Afghanistan. So at the moment what you see is that India is isolated. This is also what Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said yesterday in the parliament in a policy statement. He said that India is under pressure because of the thing that I have just explained, and because of this pressure, India can also probably go for a false flag operation, because when it is under pressure, the Modi government is under pressure inside India, they would want to vent out this pressure, and the most convenient thing for them would be to come up with a false flag operation and show aggression to Pakistan. If it resorts for any of such kind of misadventure, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India would be given a befitting response by Pakistan. And he said, these are his words, quote unquote, beware, beware. Remember February 2019 and be ready for a quick retaliation while casting an evil eye on us. So the message from Pakistan is very clear that if under pressure India is going to show any sort of aggression to Pakistan, Pakistan would give a befitting response. We'll be talking about the regional security situation after this recent scuffle, this recent rift between China and India, and the strategic balance in the region after this recent rift. We're also going to discuss about Afghanistan. Pakistan's special envoy, Pakistan's special representative for Afghanistan, Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq, met the Taliban leadership and Mullah Brother in Doha. Both sides talked about the intra-Afghan talks, the future of intra-Afghan talks, and also Pakistan's role as a facilitator, and that Pakistan wants talks that are Afghan-owned and Afghan-led. We'll be discussing about the political future of Afghanistan, the security situation, because that is a main concern, major concern for Pakistan, a major foreign policy concern for Pakistan, because peace in Afghanistan would mean peace in the region, and Pakistan is directly and indirectly affected by what has been happening or what happens in Afghanistan. We are joined by our special guest on Skype. We are joined by Lieutenant General Retired Naeem Lodhi, renowned senior defense analyst and expert on regional affairs, regional security affairs. We are also joined by Ambassador Abida Hussain, Pakistan's former ambassador to United States, and then we'll be joined by other guests as well in the show, later in the show. I'll welcome Ambassador Sayyida Abida. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ambassador Abida, welcome to the show. Talking about the situation, the India-China rift. India lost its 20 soldiers, and there are reports that India has also lost the control of the land that is disputed between China and India. After this development, how do you see the strategic balance in the region and India's position at the moment?
Well, India's position is weak because the Chinese have got the better of them. They made the incursion, and India lost some personnel. So India's position has weakened while China's position has strengthened. And the Modi government is therefore under considerable pressure.
Right. And do you see many experts in India are of the view that India should refrain from joining the US-led bloc against China Do you think that India would rethink its policy of joining the US camp, though it has a lot of pacts and
No,
MOUs
I
with
think
US?
they
But what
will
do you think about it?
proceed to join the U.S. camp because they will feel more secure vis-a-vis China by joining this group. So I think that they will proceed.
Right. You mean that India would feel safer with the United States?
I think so.
Right. But looking at the security situation or cooperation in the region, Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the regional countries, they are trying to strengthen their relationship. India siding with US, let's say, or not improving its relations with China, don't you think that would be detrimental for India?
No, I think that they will go ahead to join this bloc. As I said earlier, it will give them a sense of security.
Right, okay. Ambassador Abda, please stay with us on phone call. I'll welcome General Lodhi to the show. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam and my respects for Excellency Abda Sahiba.
Thank you for joining us. The situation and this idea inside India that people are discussing that India should refrain from joining the US bloc. They want to rethink the whole idea, whole policy of joining US and not going rather in the anti-China camp. What is the situation at the moment in the region, and do you think that India would rethink its policy after this recent development?
Actually, those who are giving the Indian government this advice, I think is a very sane advice. And India has a record of remaining non-aligned for a very long time. But I think they have traversed so much of their distance between US and India, and the number of agreements, they are about 12 of them, and all agreements are very serious agreements, very with deep relations, deep strategic relations, like sharing of intelligence, like sharing of military logistics, like sharing of each other's logistic installations and interoperability of the equipment. So these are not small things. These are large, deep-rooted agreements, and some of them have already been implemented. So I don't think they can get out of it very soon. However, I think Americans must be rethinking that what blunder they have done. Actually, they thought because they are getting out of Afghanistan, first you must be remembering that they wanted India to play some role in Afghanistan. India nearly refused or showed its inability. And now probably this testing of waters with China, maybe Americans also had to do something with it, because this I say with the conjecture, because within 48 hours there were news that the president of US is ready for arbitration or something. So which means that he had some inkling that what is going on. But I think I agree with Excellency that they have gone so ahead in these things that probably it will be very difficult for them to retrieve. However, it can become weakened or it can strengthen. And in my own opinion, it will strengthen, because now what India will do is that, taking advantage of this skirmish,
Right.
which actually has strategic effects, which we can talk later on. They will get more arms, and those sophisticated arms which Americans don't normally give to other partners except for NATO countries. I think India will succeed in doing that. And now I think the bloc has emerged quite clearly
Right.
that India will be looking after this region on behalf of US, and also probably US will be given some role in Kashmir, in India, in a way, so that they can also beef up the Indian designs of this area. And you have already spelled
Right.
out that they have nearly deteriorated their relations with everyone.
Right. We are joined by Dr. Maria Sultan, renowned expert on national security and regional affairs. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum ji.
Dr. Maria, thank you for joining us. Talking about the regional security situation, talking about India and China rift, how do you see this equation and lessons for India and lessons for the region? What do we take out of this recent rift between China and India?
I think the first and the foremost takeaway which the world has to understand is that it is the first repercussion of Kashmir in terms of what India did in terms of abrogating Article 370 and 35A. By doing so, India has lost all legal claims in terms of this being raised as an international dispute from an Indian perspective. So this basically means that all treaties which it's had with China, which it's had with Pakistan, with regards to border arrangements, stand null and void. And this also means that now at this moment, at this very moment, the Indian and the Chinese army are in an active battle zone. It also means that Pakistani and the Indian army is also in an active battle zone. So for all effective mayors, this essentially means that they have actually walked away from almost 70 years of whatever negotiations they had been trying to do. So this brings us to the bigger question of in terms of India having more access to their advanced landing bases, their attempt to create forward bases in Arunachal Pradesh as well as Leh and Ladakh area, because now the bigger question will be that will China tolerate such action? Because up till now, India has been very relentlessly building up road infrastructure and also trying to advance forward, turning advanced landing grounds into forward bases for the Indian Air Force. In addition to that, they had also deployed a number one odd unit of strategic force command, or their 33rd missile group, and 444 missile group in these areas, on the behest that this would be enough to deter China, and it would be enough to deter Pakistan. But once they lay claim to Ladakh, and once they lay claim to Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir, the same very basis is used in now at this moment for Chinese to lay claim to Arunachal Pradesh as well as the larger area of Ladakh. So this is not going to be a simple equation as the Indians are thinking. Now, for the first time, they might have to pay the bigger price of the skirmish going out of hand. This would also mean India would have to lose territory. 60 kilometers is almost lost. Now the eastern front on the northern sector is also open. So that's another equation. And number three, the Chinese are well prepared in terms of their theater commands to go on and take on the Indians. So this time, maybe it would not just be 1962. Repeat, it would be an advanced version of 1962 where the Indian forces would have to really seriously think. Now, what's the most interesting factor is that at this moment, out of 170 critical ammunition, India only has 80 of that critical ammunition being purchased. And they're now ordering almost after 1 month to ask their forces to buy purchases of critical ammunition. These are not small things. So these are very important lessons for regional stability, that the region can very quickly go towards war, and India might have to relent areas and relent space, which it never thought could be an outcome of what it did on under Article 370 being abrogated.
Right. So this was unexpected for India. Dr. Maria, please stay with us on phone call. Mr. Abda, yesterday, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, in a policy statement in the Parliament, said that India might show aggression to Pakistan. He said about the false flag operation that we might be expecting, because India is under pressure, and we see that regionally nothing has been working for India. So it might show aggression to Pakistan, some false flag operation. What do you see? How do you see the situation and Pakistan's response, possible response?
Well, I think that in case of Pakistan, we're in a comfortable situation, and India's weakening suits us. So we're well off in that regard.
Right. And talking about this aggression and Pakistan's retaliation, as Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said yesterday, do you think that the region is also not looking for any kind of conflict, but specifically India we see as picking up fights with all its neighbors? What role can the region play in making India understand about how quickly, as Dr. Maria said, this situation can aggravate, it can escalate?
I don't think that in the region any country can prevail upon India to change course in any way. I think that India does not take her neighbors particularly seriously, and I think she's going to proceed as she deems fit.
Right, right. And General Lodi, this situation in the region, even in Afghanistan, we see that India has not been welcomed, there in Afghanistan. India's role in Afghanistan has that been of a spoiler. That's what Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, by the way, said, and he hinted at the spoilers. The regional situation and this equation, where is India heading? What is India's direction at the moment?
First, I think, if you allow, I would say that there is a country in the region that can play a vital role as far as what all is going on. That is Russia,
Right.
because Russians have good relations both with China and India, and they are concerned whatever happens in this area, especially even in Afghanistan. So that when I would also like to say those India will never act in this weakness. They are, they are in a tricep. They have Chinese on one side, Pakistanis on the other side, and resistance movement on the third side. So this is a situation in which any action on their part will further deteriorate their situation. So if they really don't go by rhetorics and their planners they think deeply, they will not do anything even against Pakistan. At this time, there's only one factor which can push them in this sort of blunder, and that is any pressure, internal pressure from political pressure from within the people of India and all that. Now, coming on to Afghanistan, from Afghanistan, I think the Indian role has already waned, and it is going to diminish with the passage of time. The only thing is that, and you have seen yourself that the people who are visiting, the people who really matter, and I'm very happy that Pakistan has appointed, permanent representative, Excellency Sadiq Saab, to deal with these matters so that there is one concentrated place where talks can go on. I think with the passage of time, Indian role is going to diminish. But we must remember one thing, and that is whenever India got a chance, they did engage us in a two-front scenario. I'm talking about from Afghanistan side and from the Azad Kashmir side. My only thing, naturally I am a general, so I only talk from the point of view of strategy and operations.
Right.
That in this weakness, in this state of weakness, if Pakistan does not act, uh, you will never get this for decades to come.
Right, right. Dr. Maria, what is your take on this? That Pakistan has to take action. And by the way, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi yesterday, he talked about retaliation if there is some aggression from the Indian side. This false flag operation, first of all, what is your take on this? Dr. Maria, can you hear me? Right, okay. Ambassador Abida, this situation in the region, we talked about the false flag operation with you. India abrogated the 370 article of its constitution. Now, the thing is that this creates controversy in the region, controversy with China, with Pakistan as well. Do you think that India would rethink of taking back the decision on Article 370? Or let me put it this way, would India reverse its decision on 370 of its constitution?
You're asking this question from me?
Right. Dr. Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right.
First
Yes,
of all,
please.
I don't think so that India will be reversing the situation on Article 370. They have gone ahead and taken a parliamentary decision to create this act of violence against the people of Kashmir. The only thing what they did not anticipate is that legally that they would lose their access to go to the United Nations. This is not something which they had anticipated that this could happen, that they would be in a situation before 1948, except this time they can't rush to UN because they are the ones who actually have disregarded all UN Security Council resolutions on Kashmir. Second thing is this, that at this very moment, I would like to second what General Lodi had said. This is a historic opportunity for Pakistan, and it's a historic opportunity for the people of Kashmir. We should not lose this opportunity because at this moment, one, India had not anticipated war. Two, they have talked about it, but their army is actually at this moment in transition. And number three, if China goes ahead or there is a false flag operation on Pakistani side, we must move ahead, one, to clear the areas what is happening in Siachen, because Karakoram Pass is just very close to where Galwan River is and where the Chinese are at this moment position. And secondly, not stop. They did not stop in 1971 for us. We did not do subversion in Kashmir. The Kashmiris have been fighting for the right of self-determination. But we must not let this opportunity go. This is a historic opportunity. And, at the end they say, what happens on ground cannot be reversed in negotiations. So if the people of Kashmir are free, whether India is China's worst enemy or whether India is United States' best friend, it would not be so easy for them to reverse the situation on ground, considering that the people have been fighting for a war of liberation in Kashmir for almost 50 years. So I think this is a historic opportunity, and we must opt for a two-front war if the situation leads to a much more critical angle, either towards us or with regards to China.
Right. Dr. Magia, thank you for joining us. Pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. Ambassador Abda, many people inside India, in the region, they're of the view that Modi government has pushed India to the brink of having war with its neighbors, with China and with Pakistan for that matter recently. How do you see this discussion and this discourse that is going on in India at the moment? Modi government's performance and their foreign policy. Ambassador Abda, can you hear me?
This is on locust.
Right. I think there is some issue. Mr. Abda, can you hear me? Right. General Lodhi, I would put the same question to you. This discourse inside India about India's foreign policy at the moment, Modi government's foreign policy and their relations with the neighbors, they have pushed India to the brink of having war with China, with Pakistan for that matter. How do you see and evaluate India's foreign policy, Modi government's foreign policy at the moment?
I think if we look at their foreign policy and also their defense policy, I can very safely say that they have extended beyond their potentials. And this is one important thing which the leadership has to keep in mind. Whatever you do in the political front, in the diplomatic front, and even economic and military, you have to make sure that you have a backing of your national potential. And India it is a big country in terms of area and in terms of population. But these two factors alone are not the power potential of any nation. There are so many other things. For example, just look at the organizational and planning capacity of their armed forces. This was a small operation which they carried out, against Chinese, and this was very important. They should have realized that, and they should have gone with a lot of preparation and all that. And the way it has been conducted says volumes about about their military leadership and about their armed forces and about their organization and their way of planning. I was just thinking, I think the main difference, what I see is a very big disconnect between the political leadership and the actual armed forces. Of course, the few leaders of the armed forces, they are in line with whatever the political leadership is saying. But the army per se, army at large, is not really geared up to do all that what their leaders are expecting them to do. And they have not ensured that first they must look at their machinery and then try to apply it. So I think in the foreign policy, your main question, they have, you in your introduction, you said yourself that they have really bad relations with everyone around. So which means that they are extending themselves beyond their capacity. Probably it is to show, I do not know, it is an internal pressure or it is external pressure from United States or whatever. In any case, this show of their action has actually flopped, and they have actually become much smaller in stature as they were before this action.
Right. General Modi, please stay with us on Skype. We'll take a break, and after the break, we are going to discuss about Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq's visit to Doha, Qatar, where he met the Taliban leadership and Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar. Both sides talked about intra-Afghan talks and the future of intra-Afghan talks. and Pakistan's role of a bridge builder, of a facilitator, and a supporter of intra-Afghan talks is very clear. We're going to talk about the future of Afghan politics, intra-Afghan talks, and how would President Ghani of Afghanistan, he would sit on the table and talk about peace with the Taliban. After this break, stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing Afghanistan and a recent visit of Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq to Qatar, Doha, where he met the Taliban leadership. We're going to talk about the future of Afghan peace talks and intra-Afghan talks. We are joined by Mr. Muhammad Amir Rana, renowned expert on security, and he is the director of Pakistan Institute of Peace Studies. Welcome to the show, Mr. Rana.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Right. Talking about the intra-Afghan talks, recently, as I mentioned earlier, Ambassador Sadiq had a meeting with the Taliban leadership in Qatar. What do you see and how do you see the future of intra-Afghan talks and President Ghani's position in dealing with the Taliban in future?
The intra-Afghan negotiations and what we
I think there is some connectivity issue. General Lodhi, talking about the future of intra-Afghan talks and these negotiations, how do you see Pakistan's stance and the future of intra-Afghan talks?
Pakistan's stance has been validated. Pakistan's stance has been firm, and Pakistan's stance has always been anchored on the right principles. And we have seen it through and through. Although there was a lot of pressure, we all know it. I don't have to revise it, remind it to our viewers that what Americans were saying to us and what even more than half the world was on our breathing on our neck, that you are doing that and you are doing this. And ultimately, they have all settled down to understand that Pakistani policy was the best. We kept on saying that war is not the solution, and ultimately we have to talk, and that is what is happening. And then, Pakistan's role as far as bringing the Taliban on the table, although they are very fiercely independent people, they don't listen to anyone. And very nice of them that they did pay heed to whatever Pakistan was suggesting to them. And Pakistan can only do that because initially, previously, the world was expecting too much from Pakistan, as if this whole thing is being manipulated or being, executed from here, which was not the case. So now they've realized. Now they've also realized the importance of Pakistan. So as far as the future is concerned, I always say that a 19 years war cannot end in less than 19 months. So this is the minimum time which I think which will have to be. There is another analysis which I keep airing, that is there will be a difference in the environment once the Americans leave altogether. They are still leaving, and there's a proper agreement between Afghan Taliban and the Americans that they will allow them to exit peacefully. And then the real politics will start playing in Afghanistan. Of course, Afghan Taliban, they have learned their lessons. And if you remember that in the last 2 years, they had two very big in Moscow, where they did talk to many Afghan factions, less the Afghan government. So once we say intra-Afghan dialogue, it should not be misconstrued that only dialogue between Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government. Afghan government today is a very big stakeholder because they are commanding an army of about 4 lakhs, and Americans are still giving them financial aid and all that. The moment these two factors reduce, which I think will reduce once the Americans leave, and a lot of a portion of the forces will defect and join the other ranks, you will find that this government's stature will go in the air. So there are other many factions in Afghanistan to which Afghan Taliban are talking. They will keep on talking. So the real politics will start playing the moment Americans leave. And in my own opinion, I may be wrong, the present Afghan dispensation will have little space as far as future of Afghanistan is concerned.
Right. We have Mr. Hassan Khan, renowned journalist, renowned senior journalist and expert on Afghanistan affairs with us on phone call. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Mr. Hassan, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. Recently, as we all know, Ambassador Sadiq visited Doha and he met the Taliban leadership. First of all, my first question, how do you see this recent meeting? And by the way, Chief of Army Staff and Pakistan top officials, DG ISI, also visited Afghanistan recently. These two developments, how do you see them?
I think, Timur, if we see the last 1 week, I think a lot of developments, not only these developments, a lot more are happening on Pakistan-Afghanistan front. And if you follow the social media, a lot of good things are coming out even from Afghanistan. Historically, they were looking at each and every Pakistani move from, were suspicious about it. But you know, tomorrow a very big thing is going to happen after Chaman and Torkham. The Ghulam Khan checkpost will be open for export, import, and the Afghan transit trade. And it was a very historical demand of the Afghan government and Afghan traders. Even day before yesterday, Dr. Ashraf Ghani talked to the governor host, Halim Fidai, and congratulated him and the people of host that it is going to, it's something very big happen from a Pakistan side, that Pakistan is opening the Ghulam Khan checkpost 24 hours, 6 days a week. So these are the, and then the meeting of Chief of Army Staff with President Ghani and with other Afghan leadership, I think that was received in entire Afghanistan very positively, and people talk about that very highly. And even I met with the special representative of Pakistan for the recently appointed special representative Sadiq Khan, and he said that the meetings were held in a very extraordinary, cordial atmosphere. A lot of things were discussed. The future of Pakistan-Afghanistan transit trade, that they are going to decide on it almost next month in July and August. They will finalize it. It was pending since 2010. And they also talked about resuming the APEPs, Afghanistan-Pakistan Peace and Security Arrangement. So they are also reviving that. So I think as far Pakistan-Afghanistan relations are concerned, or the cooperation or the interaction is concerned, never there was such, they were talking in a such boastful manner. I think you definitely know that yesterday Pakistan Afghan ambassador Atif Mashal, he was having a meeting with the finance advisor on trade, Razak Dawood also.
Yes.
So this is not only that Sadiq Khan interacted for a know-how meeting with the Taliban leadership, Pakistan's military leadership, and diplomatic front and trade front, and the opening of the border and the visa issues. I think especially the Afghan transit trade, and you know, Pakistan is even considering waiving off the demurrage and detention charges for the Afghan containers which were held for the last 4 months due to the COVID-19. So Timur, I think I'm pretty optimistic. I'm pretty sure that this coming months are going to be very, very much, I think, for Pakistan and Afghanistan. They're going to be very well. The leadership of both the countries are getting closer, and they're talking very high and talking very positive. Unlike the past, when each and every move, either from Kabul or Islamabad, were considered to be obnoxious by the either country. So I think a lot of good things are happening in both Islamabad and Kabul. And definitely it will have a bearing on the peace process, and especially the intra-Afghan talks, which might be held in the first week of, might begin in the first week of July.
Right. Mr. Hassan, please stay with us on phone call. Generally, these developments, as Mr. Hassan Khan just said, are very encouraging. Of course, a very optimistic view of Pakistan and Afghanistan relations. There are a lot of areas in which we can cooperate, and we must cooperate for that matter. How do you see this appointment of Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq, Pakistan's special representative for Afghanistan, though I think for the first time that Pakistan has appointed a special representative for Afghanistan. Our ambassador in Afghanistan would be doing his work, but special representative would be looking after the whole situation over there. His appointment and
I
future
think
of Pakistan-Afghanistan relations, how do you see this?
I think in his appointment there are two good things. One, that this appointment did happen; it was required, and secondly, that the most appropriate person has been appointed. I think we should be we should thank our star that this thing has happened, and I fully agree with Hassan Saab that very bright future we can see through the tunnel. But the tunnel is still there. Actually, Foreign Minister also mentioned about the detractors, those who don't want this, peace to really hold on. And but he counted, and we can always count India as one of them, including RAW, and then some elements even now in the Afghan government, especially those who are close to NDS, then ISIS and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and gun runners and narcotic barons and all that. But then there are very strong forces which want peace in Afghanistan, including the people of Afghanistan, Afghan Taliban, Pakistan, China, Russia, Central Asian countries, Iran. So I think this time the bloc that really wants peace is going to prevail. And especially this development is an excellent development that people-to-people contacts. Pakistan is now, focusing on people-to-people contact, which is more important because you never know who's going
On
to come and
diplomacy,
rule
right?
Afghanistan tomorrow. That is for the Afghans to decide.
Decide.
But we must have good relations with the people, and these businesses and all the things they must start, and these must open up. So I see a very bright future of this entire area region, except for the Indian intransigence. Rest everything is good, and if India realizes in good time, and they also join CPAC, I think this region will come up as a golden triangle very soon, within 8 years, 10 years, as I foresee it.
Right, right. Mr. Hassan Khan, you rightly said earlier about the encouraging signs that are there between Pakistan and Afghanistan, the recent developments between both countries, and certainly this should improve and our relations should improve. But looking at the internal political situation in Afghanistan, how do you see the future of a Ghani administration and their dealing with the Taliban? Because until recently, we saw that Ghani administration, President Ghani wasn't much happy with the American way of dealing with the Taliban, and the prisoner swap for that matter at one point. So there have been ups and downs. Rather, there have been this war going on between the Kabul administration. Still, there has been aggression. The future of the Ghani administration and their dealing with the Taliban, how do you see this?
I think you are right. There are when you observe the Afghan media and the people, the analysts, especially in Kabul, they are also raising this question: Afghani administrations and Taliban induction or Taliban share in the future administration. But one thing which is, I think, quite encouraging. Is that the ownership of this the current peace process? It is international, it is regional. Pakistan, China, Russia, America, and the European countries, they are taking ownership and they are pressing Ghani quite a lot to agree to. And you know that initially President Ghani was not willing to release the Afghan prisoners, which agreed in the agreement between Taliban and the U.S. But later on, you saw that Ghani succumbed to the pressure, especially from the U.S. side and the other friendly countries. One. Two, you know that President Ghani was quite against Dr. Abdullah's role in his future in the future government when they were in the unity government last 5 years. They talked too much against each other, and during the election campaign they were very much obnoxious. There were obnoxious statement about each other, and both were quite open in saying that they will not work in future together. But now you see that Dr. Abdullah has been given a very important position. Even his people are going to be inducted, almost 50% induction in the cabinet and the other government things. So Ghani knew that, and then the Afghan diaspora, nationally and internationally, they are also pressing for carrying forward the peace process. So Ghani seems to be alone And now look at the new appointments which Dr. Ghani is making, especially the people who were known to be against him during the election. And now Ghani, unlike the past, when he mostly inducted the youth, mostly the expat youth who came back to Kabul, they were given the important position. But now he is getting, like, you look at Hanif Atmar, the other ministers which have been made. So Ghani is, I think, he is giving a space, and he is also giving statement that this what we call it, the interim government. Nobody has rejected completely the interim government, but Ghani has a point in saying that his recent statement when he was talking to one of the American think tank, that I'm not going to follow Dr. Najib's footsteps. You know what Dr. Najib did? He resigned when this is his side of the story, Dr. Ghani's side of the story, that Dr. Najib resigned, and then the whole thing was followed by a civil war. So he said that I will not resign until and unless there is a complete agreement between the Afghan political leadership, the Afghan government, and the Taliban over the future dispensation. So there are signals from Ghani also, and I think Ghani understands that as far as he is concerned, his point of view, historic point of view were concerned, he is alone there. He has very few backers there.
Right. General Lodi, this point is very interesting, raised by Mr. Hassan Khan, that the region also shares the responsibility of the intra-Afghan talks. When, let's say, Russia gets involved in Afghanistan, other countries in the region, then they also have some sort of responsibility. And if I'm correct, Mr. Hassan used the word onus is on the international community as well as on the regional powers. How do you see this?
I think this is a fact, and this fact actually will bring some semblance of balance between what the present dispensation is and what dispensation the Taliban want. We all understand that Afghan Taliban, they want to enforce Sharia laws. And the present government is a normal national, nation state as we know it. So all these countries which are trying to bring about peace and bring the people on table, they will bring that balance, and I think both sides will have to concede. The present dispensation naturally will not continue. It is not possible because the Afghan Taliban, they will emerge. They have already emerged as the main stakeholders because it is because of their effort that all the foreign forces are leaving Afghanistan. This is a fact which cannot be denied. So if that be so, we all understand that power plays a very big role in the politics of nations and internal politics. So whereas they will have to concede a lot, Taliban, based on their experience, and I hope they have learned from the experience, but they will have the dominant role in the future dispensation. And this, the actors which would like to keep that balance, Russia and China and Iran and Pakistan and some Central Asian countries, they will play a very vital role to make sure that there is no lopsided dispensation, which again, puts the entire Afghan nation into some chaos. And we hope and we pray that something good happens because of this collective effort of the regional players and the internal factors and actors.
Hope for the best. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Mr. Hassan Khan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. General Lodi, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. That's all from today's dialogue. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.